everyone, my name is Jackie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today in this video I will be doing the book unhaul challenge. Now this challenge has 10 different prompts about different categories of books, and for each one of these categories I'm going to get rid of one book on my shelf that I know I'm not going to read or not going to read again. The reason I wanted to do this challenge was just to make some room on my bookshelf so that I can make some more purchases, and just looking at my shelf, there are books here that I've had since I was like 12 or 13, and I just know I'm never going to read that book again. So what's the point of holding on to it if I know I'm never going to use it and it's just taking up space? First up in the challenge is a book you rated low, and for this one I have to go with Secrets, Lies, and Scandals by Amanda K. Morgan. This is a YA thriller, which you'll soon come to see is basically my favorite genre, and in this book a group of students who are all taking the same night class at college accidentally kill their college professor, dispose of his body, and team up to make sure that they are not caught. Now, they don't know each other well, they don't trust each other, and this whole book follows the different characters as they try to deal with their guilt and keep this accidental murder under wraps. Now, my problems with this book when I was reading it was that I didn't find any of the characters that interesting or compelling, and I genuinely really didn't care that much if they got caught or not. Also, I found their actions very idiotic and nonsensical. I mean, their professor dies by accident. He trips, hits his head, and dies. All of them are there as witnesses, and instead of calling the police and telling the truth, they decide to cover it up and lie about it, which really just makes them look guilty when, if they had all come forward to begin with and told the truth, they probably would have gotten off scot-free. Also, the ending of this book ended on a really annoying cliffhanger, which had me just going, that's it? So I do not think I will ever read this book again. If I had to rate it out of 5 stars, I'd probably give it about maybe a 2 or a 3, so I don't think there's any point in keeping it. Next up is a book you changed your mind about, and this was a very easy decision for me. I am going with 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. When I was younger, I really liked this book a lot, but now that I'm older, in retrospect, I think the way that this book depicts suicide is problematic at best, and also the television show has generated some controversy due to its depiction of wrist slitting on screen, which can be very triggering for people who have had suicidal thoughts, and some say maybe even encourage them to commit suicide themselves. And also, as I mentioned in my Burn, Rewrite, Reread tag video, Jay Asher, the author, has been accused of sexual harassment, so I just really don't want to hold on to this book, considering I think there's a lot of problematic things. I hate that word, problematic, but I don't know what other word to use in this instance. I just don't like the way it depicts suicide, and I don't like the author and some of the things that he has done in his life, so I just don't think I need to hold on to this book anymore, and that's why I'm going to unhaul it. Next up in this challenge is a series that you will not be completing, and for this I decided to go with Blue Bloods by Melissa De La Cruz. Now, these books I read in middle school. Back then, Twilight was all the rage, and I had an obsession with vampires when I was about 12 or 13. So I started reading this series. The premise is it follows a teenage girl named Skylar Van Allen who lives in the wealthy communities in New York City, the Upper East Side, and she finds out that she is actually a member of an exclusive race of vampires known as Blue Bloods. They are actually fallen angels who live through many reincarnations, and she herself is the daughter of a fallen angel and a mortal. She also has a romantic relationship with Jack, who is a full-fledged Blue Blood, but Jack's bondmate is actually his twin sister, Mimi, and in order to be together, he would have to break his soulmate bond with Mimi. Now, I read the first book, Blue Bloods, and then I got the second book, Masquerade, and I never finished it. I think this receipt was actually in my bookmark. It's still in here. I was on page 44. And when was this receipt from? From November 2011, so I was 12. And I'm not really into this sort of thing anymore. It was really just a Twilight-inspired purchase. I am not going to go back and read this series. I don't even really remember what happened in book 1, so if I did want to reread it, I would have to read book 1 again. And I just know I'm not going to read this anymore. You know, the time has passed, so there's no point in holding on to it. Next up is a book you DNF'd or did not finish, and for that I have Frayed by Kara Terraces. And this is a book, another YA thriller, about a girl who is asked by her therapist to write a series of letters to her murdered sister, while at the same time she is searching to find out who is her sister's killer. Now, this book was actually... It was originally published on the website Wattpad and then made into a novel, and I did not get that far into it. I actually think my bookmark is still in this book as well. It's a Borders bookmark, so that's how you know this is a really old book that I purchased. I read 28 pages before I put it down and never picked it up again. I just think the writing style wasn't really doing anything for me, and I just think it just wasn't as sophisticated. That sounds condescending, doesn't it? The writing style just didn't do it for me. I didn't feel like I was really grabbed by it, and at this point I just have no desire to pick it back up again, so I'm gonna unhaul it. Next up is a book that you own multiple copies of. Now, I usually don't own multiple copies of a book. However, there is one that I found that applies to this, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Just the other day, I went to Barnes & Noble and purchased a Barnes & Noble Classic version of Pride and Prejudice. I actually did not have my own copy before this because when I read it in high school, it was from the library. And the other copy of Pride and Prejudice I have is the Great Illustrated Classic version that I read when I was a little child. And what the Great Illustrated Classics are is they are classic novels that are written in a way that children can understand, and they also have pictures to accompany them. I actually used to go through and color in all the pictures, if you can see that. I don't know why I colored Charlotte Lucas's outfit like that. Like, who wears a green dress with a pink shawl and then a pink and orange bonnet? Like, what the hell is that? What was my 5-year-old self thinking when I colored this in? But anyways, I don't really think I need to hold on to this version anymore because, I mean, I'm not going to read it. I don't look at it. It just sits on my shelf for sentimental reasons. And it's written so a child can understand. It's not the same as the actual novel. And I just, I don't need to hold on to it. There's no reason for it. I have a version of the full, regular adult novel as Jane Austen wrote it, so I don't need to hold on to this, and I'm going to unhaul it. Up next is a book that you'll never actually get to, and for this one I chose Twisted by Hannah Jane. This is, surprise, surprise, another YA thriller. This is about a girl named Bex who, when she was a child, her father was arrested, accused of being a notorious serial killer known as the Wife Collector. Now Bex has moved on and is a teenager in foster care when a new string of murders pop up in town, and she is used as bait by the police to attract her father, who they believe is responsible for this new murder spree. Now, I looked at the reviews for this book on Goodreads recently, and it has a very mediocre 3.4 average rating, and reading the reviews, people really just felt like it was only okay, and that the character was kind of naive, and the story overall predictable with a rushed ending, and that just makes me not want to read it. And I think the only reason I actually bought this book was because I just wanted every YA thriller I could get my hands on. It really didn't matter as long as it was a young adult thriller. I wanted it. And I'm not excited to get to this book. I have no burning desire to read it anymore, so I don't really think there's a point in me keeping it. Up next is a book that you bought because of the hype, and for this one I have to go with Struck by Lightning by Chris Colfer. This book is about a high school senior named Carson who hates his life in his small town where he feels like no one understands him, and he is ready to go away to college at his dream school, Northwestern, to study journalism. However, he finds out that he doesn't have enough extracurriculars, and in order to get into his dream college, he has to start a literary magazine, and in order to get his classmates to write for the literary magazine, he blackmails all of them. It's a comedic book, and it's told through a series of Carson's journal entry, and the book accumulates in him being struck by lightning and killed. Now, at the time when this book was published in 2012, I was 13 years old, and I was pretty much the biggest Glee fan on the face of the earth. So when it came out that Chris Colfer, who played Kurt Hummel on Glee, was writing a book, I had to get my hands on it. And I do remember enjoying this book. I genuinely thought it was funny, but it is just so out of the realm of what I usually read that I haven't read it again since the first time I read it. I really don't remember that much about it. I think I liked it. I think I thought it was funny, but I have no burning desire to read it again, and I just think I outgrew it, so there's really no point in me holding on to it when I'm never going to look at it again. Up next is a book that you bought because of the cover, and I don't really have a great answer for this one. I don't think I've ever bought a book just because of the cover. I know some people say they buy books without reading the descriptions on the back, but I never do that, so I really didn't have a book that I bought solely just for the cover. Instead, I chose a book where the cover is what originally attracted me to it, and now, after I've read it, there's really no reason to keep it except for the cover, and that is Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls by Lynn Weingarten. Now, this is just a really eye-catching cover and title. I mean, Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls, when I first saw that, it just sounded instantly like something I would love. This book is about a girl named June, and a year ago, June's best friend Delia died mysteriously in a fire, and June is trying to find out what really happened to Delia, and this whole convoluted and confusing series of events follow. I just remember when I got to the end of this book, I was very confused and unsatisfied with how it ended. I didn't like the resolution, and there's also just a lot of controversial issues. The garage door is opening. I'm gonna have to wait for it to stop. Anyways, I just wasn't satisfied by this book at the end, and I feel like the author was trying to shoehorn a lot of controversial issues into this book and not really doing any of them justice. There's also some serious queer baiting in this book, and I just didn't enjoy it. I say it's probably about a 2-star read, and I'm never going to read it again, so there's no point in keeping it. Up next is a book that you don't know anything about, and for this one I have to go with Waiting for You by Suzanne Colasanti. My dad bought me this book as a gift, and I have to be honest, I have no interest in reading it. I would have returned it, but he didn't give me the receipt, and I was too awkward and embarrassed to ask for it, so I haven't touched it since he gave it to me like 2 or 3 Christmases ago. I don't even know what this book is about. It's some contemporary romance, and I used to really like contemporary romance when I was younger, but now I just don't really find myself interested in it anymore, and I know I'm not going to read this book. I don't know what it's about. I really don't care what it's about. I just know that cheesy contemporary romance is not my thing anymore, and I don't want to read it, so there's no point in holding on to it. I'm really sorry, Dad. I'm unhauling this book. Now, that last book could also fit into this last category, which is a book that you didn't buy. However, I have a different book in mind that I want to unhaul for this last 10th prompt, and that is Watch Me by Lauren Barnholt. This was actually my stepsister's book. My stepsister used to live in Atlanta. Now she moved to Charleston, and when she comes to visit us, sometimes if she's reading a book, she'll leave it here, and then my mom will put it on my bookshelf. I just know I'm not going to read this book. It is about a girl named Allie who is on a reality television show where she is placed inside a house with a bunch of strangers. It sounds sort of like Big Brother, which is a show that I really do like, but this book is about her being attracted to her hot and sensitive housemate Drew, even though she already has a boyfriend named Corey, and this to me just sounds like a glorification of cheating, and like I said in the last one, I'm not really interested in contemporary romance anymore, and I know that I'm not going to read this book, so if my stepsister doesn't want it back, then I think I'm just going to donate it or sell it to a used bookstore. So, to go through it one more time, the books that I am unhauling today are Secrets, Lies, and Scandals by Amanda K. Morgan, 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher, The Blue Blood series by Melissa De La Cruz, Frayed by Kara Tersis, the Great Illustrated Classics version of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Twisted by Hannah Jane, Struck by Lightning by Chris Colfer, Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls by Lynn Weigarden, Waiting for You by Suzanne Colasanti, and Watch Me by Lauren Barnhold. Alright, now that I have made some room on my shelf, I can go out and make some new purchases that I'm actually excited to start, and I feel like this was a pretty productive day. I've got rid of a lot of stuff that I don't need anymore, and you know, it's always good to do a little spring cleaning. So thank you so much for watching this video. Give it a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more book videos from me. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye!